Hey everyone, we're going to talk about a plan that President FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, had called the court packing plan, or what people call FDR's court packing scheme. It's all about protecting his big government program called the New Deal that would help individual people directly and also help businesses recover from the Great Depression. To understand how this all worked, we have to remember what the three branches of government do. So, first of all, we have our legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. Remember, our legislative branch is what makes the laws. It's Congress, the two houses, both the upper house, the Senate, and the lower house, the House of Representatives. The executive branch is mostly known as the president, with the vice president, his cabinet, all the different executive agencies that are there, and they carry out the laws that the legislative branch makes. And then we have the judicial branch, which is made up of the Supreme Court and other federal courts around the country, which interpret the law. They decide if they're constitutional or unconstitutional. Let's look at it. So, ultimately, regarding the New Deal and the Great Depression, Congress is going to make the laws for the New Deal, and the President FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, is going to carry out these laws and enforce them with his agencies, with his cabinet. So, those two branches are working together. These are the ones that are going to create, essentially, the New Deal. But there's one branch missing, and it is the judicial branch, the ones that interpret the law. So we're mostly looking at the Supreme Court today, and remember, they are going to decide if a law is constitutional or unconstitutional. And basically, if you don't know, constitutional means it's legal, it's allowed, it's proper. Unconstitutional means it's illegal, it is not allowed. And the Supreme Court is going to be made up of 9 justices. All a justice is a judge. These are the top judges, the top justices in the United States, who get to decide if something is constitutional or unconstitutional, legal or illegal. These are the ones for today in 2020. There were obviously different ones back in the Great Depression times, the 1930s. So here's how it works. Like we just said, they decide if something's constitutional or unconstitutional, and there are 9 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait, I did it wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you need a majority of them to agree if something is constitutional or unconstitutional. So, how many do you need? You need 5. You need at least 5 out of 9 to agree. If you got more, that's great. So, it all comes down to 2 Supreme Court cases. U.S. versus Butler, and I don't know how to say that, Poultry Corporation versus United States. So, these 2 court cases are going to declare that 2 New Deal programs, the Agricultural Adjustment Act, which paid those farmers to grow less food to help the farmers out, help the prices recover, and the National Recovery Act, which created all these employment codes, minimum wages, that type of thing, were both unconstitutional or illegal because they violate our 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment says whatever is not in the Constitution is reserved for the states. It's a state power. So they said that this was not something that the federal government, the government for the whole country, could do. It is something that the states would have to individually implement. So the United States went outside of their purview and created these laws illegally or unconstitutionally. So 5 of these justices, like we said, declared that they were unconstitutional. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, these aren't the ones back then. These are the ones from 2020. I'm just trying to show you how exactly it's going to work. So 2 of the New Deal programs are declared unconstitutional. They can no longer be in effect. So let's look at some political cartoons. We have our 3 branches right here: the legislative branch, the executive branch, the judicial branch. And you have the executive saying fall in, and he's looking at the judicial branch. So we know that the legislative branch is Congress, and we know that the executive branch is the president. So this is President FDR, and he's banging a drum that says the New Deal. And who's banging it with him? Well, it's the legislative branch, Congress, because what is Congress doing with the New Deal? They're making all the laws for it. So these 2 branches are working together. The executive branch and the legislative branch are helping the country recover with the New Deal. Who is not doing that? Who is not falling in line and working together with them? Well, it's the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, who just declared 2 of those programs, New Deal programs, unconstitutional, the AAA and the NRA, National Recovery Act. Remember, they violated the 10th Amendment. So that's everything. That just kind of represents everything we just said, that the Supreme Court is actively going after New Deal programs when the other 2 branches are working together to try to fix the Great Depression. So how do we think FDR feels about this? Well, he's very upset. He thinks the court is getting in the way of fixing the United States during the Great Depression, and he fears that they'll come after more programs and really hinder the progress of the nation in recovering from all the job losses, the bank failures, so on and so on. So he felt they were destroying these programs, threatening that recovery, like we just said, and his goal to try to protect the rest of the New Deal, all those other programs, the FDIC, the Social Security Act, the Tennessee Valley Authority, all that stuff. The way he wanted to protect that is by adding more justices, remember judges, to the Supreme Court. He's going to say, let's add 6 more justices. And if you know anything about government, you know that who gets to pick the justices for the Supreme Court? Well, the president does. So FDR would choose 6 more people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, obviously not real people again, to pack the court packing, right? Pack the court full of people that support the New Deal. He gets to pick the ones. So if he adds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, he now has a majority of people in the court who now support the New Deal. He has 6 more. Now there's 15. We know from before that 5 declared it unconstitutional, so 4 were with him. So if you add 5 more to that, that means if you add 6 more to that, that obviously will likely support the New Deal. He would have 9 that supported, and they would be protected. The rest of the programs would be protected from the court declaring them unconstitutional because, again, he would need a majority. Again, he has 6 of them. He already had 4 that supported him before. Now he has, that was 10. He would have 10 that support the New Deal programs. So this is his goal. He wants to pack the court in order to protect the New Deal. And again, we call that court packing. Well, FDR's opponents and critics and really everybody thought that this plan was going a little too far. So they thought that this goal that FDR had was about increasing his own power. That if he added 6 more justices to the Supreme Court, in essence, FDR would essentially control the Supreme Court. He would basically put all these yes men in the Supreme Court that would say, yes, I agree with you, FDR. Let's protect the New Deal. Let's keep going. Let's all fall in together. And essentially, all these branches of government that are supposed to check each other and balance each other out, that they would all of a sudden be unbalanced because the Supreme Court and the judicial branch would be under control of the executive, of FDR, of the president. So a lot of people thought that because these branches would no longer be equal, that this would violate the constitutional principles of checks and balances. Again, the court is supposed to check the president, just like the president is supposed to check the court, and Congress is supposed to check both of them. All the branches check each other in multiple different ways. So that won't happen, at least that'd be harder to happen, if he controlled the Supreme Court by adding those additional justices, by packing the court. Let's look at the political cartoon right here. We have FDR right here, and it says step by step. So he's going step by step. And the first step says government reorganization. Well, how is he trying to reorganize the government? He's packing the court with Supreme Court justices that will support the New Deal. 6 more justices. and that's part of the next step. So trying to the first one, government reorganization, could apply to that, but it's also just through the New Deal, trying to change the government through the New Deal, giving the government more authority over individual people's lives. From there, he would try to revise the Supreme Court, which is the next step, and doing that would essentially make him a dictator, people are going to say, because he would have so much power in the country. At the end of the day, there was so much backlash against this plan, even from his own party, that FDR is going to fail to pack the court. And the New Deal is, for the most part, the rest of it would be protected. So that was a bit of a stain on FDR's legacy, along with Japanese internment camps that we'll talk about in World War II. But for the most part, the New Deal was very successful. But these are some, this was a bit of a step too far, people thought. Well, hope you learned something today. Thanks, guys.